Welcome to West Virginia Beer Roads, a podcast all about beer from a West Virginia perspective. I'm Erin McCoy, here with my podcast partner, Charles Bockway.
High Ground Brewing sits in the tiny mountain community of Terra Alta, West Virginia. That's way up in north central West Virginia, near the Maryland border. You know, it's one of those breweries that, when it opened, it hit the ground running, quickly gaining a reputation for good beer well beyond its local community. Erin, they've even developed a strong following here in the Charleston-Huntington market. And Terra Alta, geez, that's about 3 or 4 hours drive from here.
Yeah, they've been so impressive. This year, we're seeing them place really high in the best of show judging at the major craft beer festivals in both Charleston and the Huntington area. So today, we want to find out how they've pulled this off and what their plans are to keep it going.
We have two key folks from High Ground Brewing with us today. First is Austin Weser, and he's the head brewer. Austin, welcome to West Virginia Beer Roads.
Well, thank you, Charles. It's a pleasure being here.
And here's Dallas Wolfe, the founder and leader of High Ground Brewing. Dallas, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks, guys. It's always great to get together and talk about beer, and I've been really looking forward to chatting with y'all.
Well, High Ground only opened back in March of 2019, which, is not that long ago. And often it takes a year or two for a brewery to hit its stride, so to speak. So Dallas, looking back, why do you think High Ground was able to get off to a fast start?
Well, honestly, I mean, if from the perspective of everyone else, High Ground did hit the ground running pretty hard, but in all honesty, from my perspective, it took like forever. It took us, 4.5 years from the moment that I said, hey, I want to start a brewery, and all my friends looked at me like I was crazy, and so did my family and everybody else, to developing a business plan, developing recipes, getting everything, in line, ready to go, execution ready, seeking financial, the finances and the capital. And, that was a major, stepping stone. So with all of that, 4.5 years till we put the stuff in the brewery, had the kettle fired up, and we were making our first beer. So honestly, I think without a good plan and all that, and then of course, I don't think we would have done nearly as well. But very meticulous planning is what I think is the key to our early success.
Well, you basically just led right into my next question, which is, what would you call the key components of your plan to continue to grow and to continue to improve along the way?
Yeah. So from the beginning during the plan, it was very, very much like, hey, we have to be able to make a certain amount of beer in order to be, financially a viable company. We went through an SBA loan through Huntington Bank. So we went a more traditional bank loan route, which, there's all kinds of different ways you can get started financially. But we kind of went more of the difficult road when it comes to, going to a bank and having our business plan looked at by a team of underwriters they're extremely, merciless and, calculated investors that are going to make sure that what you're doing, and especially, we're putting it in Terra Alta. I had people from Huntington come visit the little town that we were going to put this brewery in. And we were able to prove that we are going to have this much percentage of distribution. And even if we distribute 90% of all of our product and only sell 10% out of our tap room, we can still be financially successful. And that was how we kind of had to win over the bank. So, that was kind of the key, was the plan was to make sure it was financially viable. Without that, we wouldn't have had anything. Nobody from Huntington wanted to try our beers to see if they were any good. It was a numbers game. You know what I mean? So,
wow. They didn't even want to sample anything. They didn't care. Great numbers.
Yeah. They just wanted to see those beautiful spreadsheets.
So how are you keeping that going, though? I think that's kind of what we're curious about too. You got that start with a lot of planning. Yeah. But how are you now keeping that quality building and business building going?
And honestly, it comes down to every time I get asked these questions, my answer is, is always pretty much the same. And it's surrounding yourself with people that are passionate about what they do, about the craft, the trade, everything that is beer. And we build a family-like atmosphere, and we continue to add people that bring that kind of energy to the business. And we're all, and I just kind of guide us, not just one way or the other, but it's the team that truly is kind of taking us into to the next steps. Honestly, my role is more or less just, keeping us kind of on the path and, showing the big long-term stuff, but the people that are in there day in and day out, like Austin, and like Wayne Border, our sales and distribution manager, and Jeff Mitchell, our taproom manager. And then, my buddy Adam that comes in and fills in, he kind of fills in and does whatever needs happening. We've got all the part-time taproom employees that are coming in day after day, bringing great energy to the taproom. We recently hired a assistant brewer, Jack Friend, who is very eager to learn and, super picking up everything really great. So that's how we're staying relevant, in my opinion, is people that care. We sit around and drink beer and talk about what do we want to brew next. And that's, it's all, getting people excited about it. We're all excited about it. We're trying to get everybody else excited about it. We're just as excited about a lager as we are about a IPA, or we're just as excited about some ancient beer that was brewed by the Nords as we are as a pastry stout. And we're trying to get the great word out there, if you know what I mean. And I think honestly that energy that we all kind of share together as a brand, I honestly think it gets out there to the people. I mean, even down to the people that our customers out in the field. Wayne brings that energy to our retail clients, our wholesale clients, and they share that same kind of brand loyalty. And then my wife, Jana, is doing an amazing job with the marketing on social media. And she's getting the word out to the people on there. So, I mean, that's, I think, what it is, honestly. I think my role was very small in comparison to what everybody else is up to.
Austin, I recall I've run into you at back before you were with High Ground at other breweries in West Virginia. Isn't that right?
Yeah, I've worked at two other West Virginia breweries commercially. I've been home brewing for about 7 or 8 years now.
And you get to work with this guy Dallas every day, and you see him every day. What do you see about his leadership? What do you see in his leadership, maybe, that really stands out and makes a difference to the work environment and to the product, to the processes at High Ground?
Trust. Trust is a big one. I came on last October. I've been pretty much in charge of all the beer since April. And Dallas is he's confident that he's made a good decision in me and that I'm competent enough to make quality beer. And that amount of trust is hard to find these days, especially in leadership or, in management. Generally, people will want to manage you or overmanage you more than you should, especially in something like brewing. That's a very creative process. I think being micromanaging and a little too close to it tends to be more harmful than good. But Dallas is pretty exceptional at giving me the leeway to make the beer that I want and that we want and to the best of my ability.
So I'm wondering now, let's just talk about you and your professional brewing skills and background. I'd like for you maybe to just address a few of the things that you think you've really learned that's made a difference to you through the years. I mean, and especially things that maybe when you first started, you didn't think would be as critical as you've now, or critical to success as you've now learned, having been in the business for a number of years.
Commercially, every brewery does things different. I'll tell you that first and foremost. There is no set way of doing things. Generally, brewers have their own little niche things they like to do. What I've learned, the biggest thing I've learned is cleanliness. People think that brewing is a very glamorous job about making beer all the time and drinking beer all the time and trying it. Most of what you do is cleaning and sanitization, and ensuring that you're more than halfway to great beer with great cleanliness. And that's probably the biggest thing I've learned commercially brewing in all three places.
Well, I think it's time to sample a High Ground beer. What do you think?
Absolutely. And guys, while we get this one together, maybe Dallas, if you want to address that same question of things that you've learned through experience now that you see as critical to your success, that maybe when you first got into this business, you weren't as aware of, while we're opening this beer, and we'll talk about it.
When we first started, we were, the finances were, like any business, it's going to be tight. So I was doing a lot of stuff by myself, and I was still working a full-time job at the Army, still, doing, 40 hours a week with the military, and then doing, coming into the brewery in the evenings and cleaning and, doing all this stuff, and then brewing on the weekends and doing that. I did that for like a year. And, honestly, the having more people is the best, and having somebody that can, and honestly, I'm focused on just pumping out stuff and doing what I got to so I can get home and go to sleep, and having people there to manage, all the aspects of the brewery and stuff is huge. And, having more hands in the brewery is definitely great. So, I wish that I could have right from the gate had a full complement of people. But
let's talk about this beer. Can you describe this for us and get into some details for us?
Biff.
This is Biff, which is the German Pilsner.
Yep. So it's lightly dry hopped, and I'll let Austin kind of talk about the beer itself. But just as a personal note, this one was named after my grandfather, Dallas Jr. Everybody calls him Biff because he was one of so many Dallases already in the family. With me being the fourth. And so that it's named after him. He was one of a few people that loaned me some money to try to get the needed capital. But Austin can talk about the beer itself.
So Biff's a dry hopped German lager. German lagers are very characteristic, at least in lager and Pilsner terms, as being a little sweeter than your Czech Pilsners, but it actually bounces out quite nicely, adding a dry hop to it. It kind of brings a bit more bitterness to it to round it out, any sweetness that might be left in a traditional German Pilsner. And plus it gives it a little note that, generally German Pilsners aren't dry hopped in Germany. They're not, Germans are very traditional in the way they do things, and dry hopping is not exactly a traditional method of doing things, but it's kind of our American spin on it. It's mainly Pilsner malt. That is a beer. All of our lagers and all of our Pilsners are very, all the flavor is driven through the brewing process. There's not a lot of ingredients in there that kind of get in your way. They do accentuate them well. There's no room for error. You're tasting all the fermentation, the quality fermentation, the dryness, the clarity, the everything it carries has to do with the brewing process rather than ingredient driven, which is more of an IPA character. So I really enjoy that beer. I wish it was around more often.
How long does it typically take for you to produce this particular beer?
Our lagers are generally a 12-week turnaround.
Okay.
There's usually a 2-week fermentation process. 1 week of crashing, and then transferred to a bright tank to set for an additional 8 to 9 weeks for clarity and lagering, allow all the flavors to kind of meld together in a more homogeneous way. And then it really does create a much better beer, and there is no substitute for time.
Right.
In this. There's no real quick way to do it.
Well, having said that, then you've got to obviously plan this out to where you have the space to let it lager. Tank
Absolutely.
space, I mean.
Yeah, we have 2 larger tanks, 2 20 barrels, a 20 barrel unit tank and a 20 barrel bright tank. And we are adding a second 20 barrel unit tank soon, so that these beers, so we can produce more of these beers at a faster rate. They're very popular. People like them. I like to drink them. It's always nice to have a nice crispy, clean, fresh beer on hand.
You guys have seen then a kind of a renewed interest in the craft world, I think, as we have in lagers, and especially crispy lagers and the pilsners. But I do think this is a beer you've also kind of made from the beginning, isn't it, Dallas?
We've been huge fans forever, and that's honestly. So this is my thought on brewing. Like, okay, yeah, got it. You can make a sour, you can make an IPA. But like, I judge all breweries that I go to by their lager. The first thing I order when I go to a new brewery is if they've got a lager on tap, I'm ordering that, and then I'm judging you on that one. Like, because I think it takes more. I think it takes more skill, sure. And I get to understand more about what somebody's up to in the brew house by tasting somebody's lager than I ever will by tasting a Haze Boy or a pastry stout or anything like that. Like, oh, sure. You can't hide behind anything in a lager. You can't hide behind a 44-pound Galaxy dry hop. You know what I mean? Like, you are right there in front of everybody. So if you can do a lager, then you get all the respect in the world from me. And I think there's more people that are kind of seeing that.
While we are enjoying this wonderful lager, which is fantastic, I'm wondering if you could talk about the challenges of operating a brewery in rural West Virginia, like production, distribution, taproom challenges, operations, things like that.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of challenges, as you can expect. A lot of them are, some of them are logistical. Some of them are, just being out of the way. We're out in the middle in the mountains. And that means that we're really accessible to the majority of the population. About 6 months a year is really, about the only time that we're available for people to come see us, because in the wintertime, I mean, we are, I don't know if you've been to Terre Haute in the wintertime, but it can get crazy. I mean, I had a snowbank in my brewery's parking lot that was, I bet you it was every bit of 30, 35 feet tall. And it lasted from probably December on, and it didn't melt completely until like the beginning of May.
That's really going to impact your distribution too, right? Yeah.
Well, it's crazy. I mean, Wayne is a road warrior. That guy is, he straps his glasses on extra tight, and he white knuckles it all the way all over the state of West Virginia. But so our tap room really is kind of operational to a limited capacity in the wintertime. So that makes it difficult. And then being in a rural spot, you really have to rely on where you're located, what you're around. So we're fortunate enough to have Alpine Lake and, Oakland and Deep Creek. We're not too far from Morgantown. And of course, we're bringing people from all over the country to the spot. Like they're visiting wherever they're coming from somewhere. It never ceases to amaze anybody in the brewing world where the license plates start coming from. But yeah, it's very, I don't know, it's kind of a challenge, but I mean, we've made it work, and distribution is how we made it. We kind of talked about it when I talked about the business plan, but our ability to distribute beer keeps us going. And then, the summertime is where we make our money, because we have a huge beer garden with picnic tables and, big outdoor space. So that's, summertime's where we do well as far as tap room, and then the distribution picks up the slack in the winter.
I wonder if you could expand a little more. I'm really curious on the tourism angle. Like, what is the impact of tourism on your business there in the mountains?
I mean, you know, I mean, it is big. I mean, we have some people that come in from the local community. There are mainstays every day, but we wouldn't get the amount of flow through our area without, you know, all the beautiful natural splendor that is around our area. You know, we've got the Cheat River, and we've got all the beautiful mountains, and we're relatively close to Thomas Davis, and you know, all of those awesome places to go out there. You know, Cooper's Rock, and you know, the beautiful outdoorsy kind of folks, the river people. You know, if it weren't for all those people and all the things that kind of bring weird interests all over the place, then we wouldn't be able to do nearly as well. So honestly, tourism is, you know, essential.
We're going to move back into another beer tasting here. And speaking of what those tourists come to Terra Alta for, in part, let's talk about this Market Zero Golden Stout. That is one beer that you guys, again, I think you've had for a while. It's a popular beer. We get it sometimes here in the Charleston market, at least in cans. So let's open this up and let you guys tell us what we're going to be tasting.
Okay, Golden Stouts. What can I tell you about them? The first one I ever had was from Jackie O's. Was Pale Apparition, and I was at a beer store, and they told me Jackie O's was there. They're pretty awesome, and then they said Golden Stout, and I was like, "What? What is that exactly?" And they're like, "Well, it's a stout that doesn't carry any dark color to it, but tastes like a stout." And I'm like, "That's absolutely fascinating." And I tried it. I loved it. I thought it was one of the best beers I've ever had in my life. And I'm like, I'm going to learn how to make this. Took me several years, several batches of messing a lot of things up in a row. But we got to the point where we created something that carries a lot of those awesome stout-like flavors, the cocoa, the vanilla, the coffee, all those awesome flavors I love for people to try. But everybody that says, "I don't like dark beer," I'm like, well, it's not dark. You want to try it? So here's what we do. We can get those beers or those flavors to you in a medium that's not dark, where you're willing to try it. And I find a lot more people are much more likely to try it because it's not necessarily dark beer, but it still carries all those really great flavors that dark beer has.
You know, I know it probably has lactose in it to get some of that, but tell me a little more about what the ingredients are that do give it those. I mean, do you actually put coffee in this, or does it just come from the roasted grains?
We actually put coffee in it. Well, we dry hop. Well, it's essentially a method similar to dry hopping, but with coffee. And we use coffee from locally roasted coffee in Morgantown from Quantum Bean. Nice. Sam Bonasso is fantastic. He roasts coffee for us the day before we put it into our beer. So he's been very great about getting us a real high quality product. There's also cocoa nibs in it, which cocoa nibs are like the purest form of chocolate that you can get. And but they're a bitter kind of chocolate, but they provide a whole lot of great flavor. And there is vanilla beans. There's a lot of oat in it. And but most of the toasted flavors do generally come from the adjuncts that are put into it. And in order to create a base that has a lot of mouthfeel and is very coating, it tends to be a little sweet, but that sweetness does help kind of balance out all that bitter coffee and bitter chocolate. And I think this year's turned out actually pretty well.
Yeah, excellent.
Well, it's going to be an expensive beer to make too, I would think, with all those ingredients that you just listed.
Yeah, I mean, it may be a little, but who cares?
It's worth it. It is balanced very well. You really do get
Yeah,
great balance of all of the flavors that you described. And
yeah. So when you
well
brew
done.
it, and when you brew it, like before you do the coffee and the vanilla and stuff, it's pretty boring flavor, to be honest with you. It's just this sweet thing that honestly is not very interesting. And you put all the coffee and the vanilla in it, and it just completely transforms it. So Austin, I think Austin's key to his successes with this beer is that he made a beer that is simple and ready to receive maximum flavor from vanilla and coffee. If I were to summarize it as gently as possible. And it is also worth noting that Market Zero was one of the beers that made me immediately start excessively trying to recruit Austin to be a brewer at High Ground. We were at Rambling Root for I think it was one of their anniversary parties or something. And if anybody knows Austin, they know that he's got what we call trunk beers, is which he drives around in his car, and he's got a cooler with homebrew in it, and he wants everybody to try it. And he had me try this one, and I'm like, we're making this at High Ground. Like, we're doing it. We made it at High Ground before Austin was even a full-time employee. And then shortly after, I managed to finally land Austin as a full-time employee. So Market Zero is super important to the business.
Oh, yeah. Very nice. It's a very good beer. And I can see, as Austin said, it is a good beer for people that maybe want to try a stout, but are sort of turned off by the fact that a beer is very dark and they think it's heavy. This is definitely not heavy. It's got great flavor.
Yeah, and I think we're not the only ones that liked it. Of course, recently at the Foam at the Dome Beer Festival in Charleston, West Virginia, this was runner-up for Best of Show, this Market Zero Golden Stout. Mm-hmm. Hey, I'm also curious about, guys, where you came up with that name, Market Zero, and this can with the bowling ball hitting the pins. That's really kind of a novel label, and I'm wondering what the significance or the background of that is.
You want me to do it?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
you named it.
Market Zero. We were making this beer actually, and there's a sign in the brewery that says we've gone exactly 0 days without a mess up. But one of our favorite movies is also The Big Lebowski. And if you notice the can and the art on the can, it's very similar to retro California bowling alleys. And that's a good friend of ours, Sutton Daniels at Self Care Clothing, was able to do the art for us. But also, one of the famous quotes in the movie is one of the best characters ever, Walter Sobchak, standing in a bowling alley, screaming at another individual saying, "Market Zero, Market Zero." And it was us messing the beer up, actually, at least 2 times, trying to make it commercially first. And so we just kept saying, well, there's a sign on the wall that says, we've had 0 days without a mess up. Market Zero. There's another mess up.
Nice.
It did take us 3 attempts to make that beer for the first time. And I felt like.
And one of which the entire staff of Big Timber shows up to do to hang out with us. And we're like
right in the middle.
We have completely messed up this batch. Like, things are going very badly. And we're like, it's a little bit embarrassed. We're like, yeah, we've totally jacked this up. Yeah. And of course they were like, yeah, we do. We get it. No problem.
Well, we always hear how close the brewery people are, very close knit community, which is great.
Oh yeah, big time. Obviously. Yeah, it was hilarious. I was like, yeah, no problem, no worries, guys. We just have one of the most major stuck mashes of our commercial career happening at this very moment. But hey, let's drink beer or whatever. We're probably going to dump it anyways, which we did.
Well, hey, you guys, you mentioned about the label, Sutton Daniels, and I noticed that that same individual did the Biff label. Do you stick with this person, or do you switch it up as far as local artists for your label design?
Yeah, so we so Sutton Daniels, actually, I think he was either the first or second. I think because Austin wanted to label for Market Zero in the beginning. before we even had any means or methodology to even put beer in a vessel. And so we found out about Sutton through Austin. And of course, I'm a big tattoo person, and you can tell by the branding from the brewery that, we take a lot of cues from the American traditional tattoo scene. But as far as artists go, we have 3 that we use pretty much regularly. 4 if you count my wife, who has done a few. And we've got Sutton Daniels, who does Market Zero and Biff and Delbert and all of the traditional tattoo, like bold holds kind of line work. We have Paul Anderson, who does tattoos down at the Patty Czar spot, and he does. He's done Booth Stroke and Weird Science. He's done Pineapple Preacher. He's done quite a few of them as well. Oh, Wizard Dreams. So he has like this cool tattoo kind of vibe too, but it's a little less like traditional flash work. Yeah, a little bit more whimsical. I like that. And then
local artists, that's good. That's great. We like to see that or hear about that, at least in the craft community for sure.
Yeah. And then the third person is Adam Matthews, who does like our traditional horror, kind of like, super like dark and gritty stuff like Druid Fluid and Coltrane. And, a lot of that stuff, which, I'm a big horror movie fan, and we were all, me and Adam both. And so, obviously all the artists that we pick kind of, play into our personal preferences when it comes to artwork.
Well, as they should.
Yeah.
For your brewery,
which, we're kind of weird. And, I think we're probably Weatherground does use Adam Matthews for a few of their things, but the majority of our stuff is, I feel like, as far as branding goes, I think we're kind of defined. I think we've kind of got a feel like you can kind of pick our stuff out on the shelves, which is the key and what you want to do. So in those terms, I think we're doing great, and our artists are awesome, and I just it's like Christmas morning whenever I get to see what they've came up with.
That's gotta be exciting. Let's talk a little bit about accomplishments that you feel that you're most proud of.
Just getting started, for one, was just insane. The amount of people that were doing things for us that didn't ask for anything in return. The fact that we were able to pull together all these people and, just make this thing happen and do what we wanted to do, which was just make beer for people that could get excited about it, and we can get excited about it. That's it. There's all kinds of like little baby accomplishments or small milestones that we did as a team, or that we're all proud of. Winning, the first brewery competition that we ever did, we took second place in 2 different categories, which was super cool. It was like, we've literally been open for like a month and a half, and Mandatory Fun took second place in IPAs, and Coltrane took second place in the dark beer category, which was insane to me. I thought that was really cool. That was kind of like holy crap, like, this is amazing. Like, we took second place to Bat Boy, which is an amazing beer, and they deserve that one, of course. And and then of course he brewed the beer that beat us, Multiple Hopgasms from Stumptown, beat us on the IPA. So it was great. But that was kind of like that first, like, that was one of the first moments of like, okay, I think maybe we're doing okay. We went to one of the big beer festivals in Lewisburg. We placed, that's great. And then, little validations along the way have, continued to reinforce the fact that we're doing good things. People asking us to talk about beer and, podcasts and stuff like that. Like, you guys are asking us questions, which I think is another, I think that's another measurement of success. And I'm just proud of the whole full spectrum thing. There's too many things. I did just list a bunch of stuff, but there's a lot of things to list. But I'm just can't believe this has happened. I've specifically remember drinking beer in the basement with my buddy Adam and looking at him in the face and saying, I'm going to start a brewery. And he looked at me and instead of looking at me like I'm insane, he looked at me and said, let's do it. And boom, we did it. So that's what I'm most proud of. If you really want to know, that personally still gives me chills.
Oh, sure.
To flash back to, it's almost been 7 years, to me sitting in my basement after we brewed beer, like all day, drinking beer, listening to music, just having a great time, to me saying, Adam, I think I want to make a brewery. I want to do it. He looks at me and says, okay. Chills.
Yeah, no, personal feeling successful is amazing. And that's a huge accomplishment. So we're rooting for you.
Yeah, you can see why we said it's a fast out of the gate brewery. I mean, right out of the bat, out of the gate, you were winning medals at beer festivals and things, and gaining fans. I mean, not just because a beer festival said they were good, but man, we see that in Charleston, Huntington, and like I say, we're 4 hours away from you to some extent, 3-4 hours away from you guys. So it's not like you're our next door brewer and we love you. We love you, even though you're way up there, almost Maryland.
From afar. We love you from afar.
When you opened, I think it was March of 2019, officially opened your brewery for business there with licenses and all. First year, I noticed in Untapped, I know Untapped ratings aren't everything, but they're certainly some indicator, and I like to follow them because I see, number one, how frequently people enter beer ratings and also what ratings they average out to a brewery. And you guys came out of the gate again strong. First year, you were, at over 375, which or 376, which is a really solid rating in West Virginia. And for, compared to all the breweries we have, 1 year later, I mean, that was 4,000 ratings. Then in 2020, the next year, you had over 10,000 ratings and you were up to 383. That's a huge jump. I mean, when you start adding in thousands of ratings, you've got to get a lot of average, higher average ratings to get those numbers to rise. Now, 2021, you're going to end with, it looks like 386 is what I'm guessing. That's got right up there in the stratosphere with West Virginia breweries, the best ones. And it'll be 17,000 ratings, I'm saying. That's just fantastic. I mean, for people who haven't been there, this is a little tiny town. You might be the biggest business in that town. It's like a very small community in the mountains, like we said. And it's just amazing to see the success you've brought to that. And Dallas, you didn't come out of a brewing family or brewing industry. You hadn't worked in the industry. You didn't go to brewing school. You just brought this vision. And I think, to me, that's just such an inspiration for other breweries, or could be, should be for other small brewers that want to get started in this industry. And we think there's still opportunity, there for and need in our state for that.
For sure.
Yeah, I agree. It's pretty wild to watch it. And, Untapped is, it is a fickle beast. And, the problem is one of our issues is that, we brew so many friggin' lagers, and, lagers just don't rate well on Untapped. So, so that happens too, but, we're friggin' super excited. Just today, Charles, I paid the second half of my my down payment on a brand new 20-barrel vessel, which should be coming to us in the next week or two. So we will be expanding our total production volume by it's probably 20 to 30% over the winter time. Of course, it's going to be a little slower, but by next year we should be seeing a significant increase in our production capacity. And we're going to be scaling up. It's going to get wild out there. If you guys are ready.
All right, you heard it here. Breaking news: expansion at High Ground Brewing. I love that.
And yeah, we're looking forward to that. And so, with expansion, does that mean there's a discussion of some upcoming beers that you want to highlight for us?
Okay. Yeah. So we have some new beer. Like we put out quite a lot of beer. I like to think of ourselves as pretty creative with the types of beer that we put out, the new ones. Soon, Fruits of the Forest Pie Tart Shake IPA. So for those of you that don't know, Fruits of the Forest Pie, it's apple, raspberry, blackberry, blueberry, rhubarb, graham cracker. It's going to be a sour beer, a little bit sour, but also hopefully tastes like rhubarb pie.
Yeah, it's going to be part of the Tart Shake series. So if you've had like Coconut Pete or Ajeez, or any of those beers. Like it's going to be the sour, but also like a milkshake sour.
On the paint, but new beers. We have a vanilla milkshake IPA coming. A very vanilla milkshake IPA coming.
Yeah, you guys haven't shied away from those styles like a milkshake IPAs and sour lactose laden IPA. You know what I mean?
Adjuncts.
Yeah, you've been willing to tackle those as a small brewery, and some of them, I mean, that's hard to do and do it well.
We kind of take the old styles approach. Like I said, we're one of those breweries that will do everything from a vanilla milkshake IPA that tastes like a dreamsicle to a Dunkel or a German Pilsner or something, so like,
there's room for all kinds. My favorite brewer in the world is Henrik Fenty from Omnipollo, and he's very, very brave with flavors, but they always seem to turn out. For other new beer, we do have a lot of collaboration stuff coming,
and it's pretty exciting. I mean, we've got some of our we're mixing it up with other breweries. I've been talking with a few other breweries, and we've got some talk going on about what we want to do, and then we've also got some of our retail clients as well. We're trying to do some stuff. Another one of the collaborations is Summit. We did it for their anniversary they just had, and totally recommend going down there and trying that out. It's a Dunkelweiss called Stop Trashing Our Bathroom. If anybody follows Summit on social media, they'll know that they have bathroom terrace.
Fantastic.
And they have the craziest stuff that happens in their tap room. I've never seen anything like it.
I know,
so
everybody wants to steal signs.
everybody wants to steal something, or just take all the toilet paper and put it in the toilet or in the sink. I don't know. It's insane to me. So either way, we we're kind of crazy with our beer names anyway. So we had all these like very unique names, play on words with German stuff and all this stuff. And we finally just settled on Stop Trashing Our Bathroom, which is very high ground, if you ask me.
We do have also it's not necessarily brand new beer, but we've made it seasonally, and we're going to start making it again. Like Peace Among Worlds, we're coming out with again. That's our Horchata porter. It's lighter. It actually contains rice, like Horchata is, with the vanilla, the cinnamon, the flavors of it. It's not necessarily a winter drink, but it does carry all the great notes that winter has to offer. Coconut Pete will be back again for those that had it last year. Very coconut, very guava, very peat. We do a lot of movie references, which has actually has benefited us in the sense of we did make a beer last year called New Boot Goofin.
This is great.
Based on a show that we watch a lot of, Reno 911, and actually got contacted by Thomas Lennon on our anniversary party.
Yeah, I FaceTimed with Thomas Lennon.
It was pretty amazing.
Wow.
The dude called me and he says, "Hey man, I just had we sent him some of our beer, so if you don't know who Thomas Patrick Lennon is, he is Lieutenant Dangle. He's the police officer in Reno 911 that wears the short shorts and the boots. Is the bicycle police lieutenant." And so like we were contacted by him on Instagram, and then
his aunt showed up at the brewery.
Yeah, it was actually his cousin. Yeah, his cousin shows up at the brewery, and we're like, "Oh yeah, that's cool." And then all of a sudden she comes over and she's got Thomas Patrick Lennon on the phone, holding up a pair of those bicycle shorts that are like super tight and super short, and he's got them on a coat hanger, and he's like, "Hey man, what's going on? Like, you see, I got it was the most insane thing ever." So that was. Of course, we were both at the time hanging out with celebrities, which was great. Him with us, and
those are 15 minutes right there.
We've talked a little bit about collaborations. We've talked some about expansion at the brew house. We've covered some new beers that are on the way out and things like that. How about anything else, though, that upcoming that you want to mention or we've left out before we wrap up our program today?
So first of all, I want to personally thank you both for all the stuff that you guys do. You guys get to ask questions to other people, and other folks get to talk about their successes, and we don't often get an opportunity to hear from you guys and your success and what you guys are bringing to the community. And from a viewer perspective, which I watch all your videos, and I've been following you guys forever. And me and my wife met Charles before the business even happened. And I just want to thank you guys for everything you're doing with Brilliant Stream and Beer Roads and all that stuff, because I think you guys are an essential part of the craft beer scene. And I thank you guys for giving us an opportunity to talk about our business and all the free press that we've got from you guys over the years, and you've given to other breweries. I honestly think it's amazing what you guys are doing. And I want to drink a beer to you guys. And
Oh my goodness.
Well, thank
you very much for everything you guys do for us. And honestly, I mean, that's it for me. I mean, for you guys, I mean, come support High Ground, drink High Ground, seek High Ground, as our logo says. Come see us at a festival. We got all kinds of festivals coming. Well, we got one more basically coming up, maybe two. But then, come see us at our tap room, and, go visit your favorite local spot and ask for it repeatedly over and over again.
Well, we certainly have fun in what we do. Otherwise, we wouldn't do it. So thank you for those kind words. They're very well received, and we appreciate it very much.
And before we get out of here, we got one last thing that we like to kind of like, it's topical because it's coming up this winter again, and that's legislative season.
Yeah. So what would you like to see in our state beer law and regulations as far as maybe changes upcoming, or just in general? What would you like to see?
Number one, I'd say, I think the distribution contractual laws need to be updated. So what's going on right now, so if anybody's not tracking on it, is if a brewery signs on with a distributor, it's essentially a contract for life, and said brewery can't get away from them. And so, and I understand why that law exists, and it's because of the smaller breweries or smaller distributors out there that maybe rely on Anheuser-Busch, and if Anheuser-Busch fires them, then their business ceases to exist. I understand that. So, one of the things that I would like to see maybe some exceptions when it comes to production. How much production you do. So like, say if you do under so many barrels a year, considered a microbrewery, then you can engage in contracts that are, maximum or minimum, maximum of 3 years or minimum of 3 years or whatever. That it's not a lifetime contract, because the problem is that if I sign up with a distributor and they aren't representing my brand correctly, I can't fire them. So like, I would consider a distributor like another employee. And if they're not representing my brand correctly, then I can't fire them. That's handcuffing me.
Yeah.
So I'm a self-distributing brewery for a very specific reason. And it's this reason. I can't feel comfortable with signing up with any distributor out there, knowing that, everything may be great at the table, but then all of a sudden they may not represent my stuff. They may not store my beer properly. And then all of a sudden I've got a bunch of bad beer out there that I can't control, which I'm not saying distributors are doing that. I'm just saying that it could happen. So I don't have any beef with the distributors out there. I think that if you are the little guy, because the laws are built to protect the small guys. We're the small guys in this situation. And if I go with the big distributor and I'm not being represented correctly, I should be able to at least at a minimum have, okay, let's just wait it out for this many years and then we can move on with our lives. But I don't have that option. So I'm 100% locked in with self-distribution, which isn't a bad thing at all, because I get to control everything. And that's one of our, like we talked about today, one of the keys of our success. But that's something that I think, and it doesn't get talked about, and it's not super popular in the guild. It doesn't get talked about a lot, but I know there's a lot of breweries out there that kind of think like I do. So that's a big one. And then a very, a second place is just the abolishment of the ABV limit. I think that is kind of crazy. I don't understand it. Like, if I can go buy 20 bottles of Jack Daniels, why can't I just go buy a beer that's over 15% alcohol? Like, it makes no sense to me.
Yeah, I do have a small gripe too, but it's very small and menial. I don't understand why, for example, if you ever look at like Vail or Tired Hands or the people that are allowed to ship beer to different states, why are we always exempted? It has to do with our laws, and it's like, what is the issue with a private person buying beer from a brewery that they really enjoy?
And that's from a consumer perspective. Like, I can't like have Tired Hands send beer to me, which is annoying as a consumer.
Because I have a friend in Point Marion, and I live in Morgantown, and I could drive to her house 6 minutes away and get it, but I can't get it at my house. It's a little strange. So I'd like to see that whatever law that is, keeping it from happening or change.
Yeah, shipping. Yeah, that we've talked about that before. That's something I know a lot of craft beer connoisseurs would like to see changed. It's just, it seems asinine.
Yeah, no, those both excellent points, both from Dallas and Austin. Guys, I want to thank you. Dallas Wolfe, I guess you're the president and more or less CEO of High Ground Brewing in Terra Alta, West Virginia, and Austin Weser, head brewer, who's contributing so much there to the stylistic variations and creativity that we heard about today. So thank you guys both for being on West Virginia Beer Roads today.
Yeah, absolutely. We appreciate the time, and all the information is great, and looking forward to hearing more about that expansion once it's up and running. So we'll circle back around at that point.
Awesome. Hey, thanks for you guys' inviting us on this awesome program. And it was an absolute pleasure to talk with you guys today. So, until we see each other in person, hopefully we can drink a couple beers and,
we can do that.
Hang out. Thanks.
Cheers, guys. I'm running low, but cheers anyway.
Austin's done.
This brings us to the close of another podcast. Remember, you can subscribe on Apple, Spotify, or your favorite podcast host. Thank you for listening to West Virginia Beer Roads.
West Virginia Beer Roads is a production of BrilliantStream.com.